Hello dear learners, I am Arhul Ranjan from XXII. You have learned in the previous lecture about the kinematics using mathematical calculation, but I am here today. I am going to discuss about the graphical approach in motion in this lecture. So graph is very important in science. Graph is the easier way to handle rigorous mathematical calculation. So you have to know about how to handle the graph. So in this lecture I am going to introduce the idea of graph and which is also connected to the kinematics. Now in this lecture I am going to teach you how you use graphs in kinematics. So graph is very useful to understand the problem and it also helpful to reduce time in solving the numericals. So I am discussing here about graph. So let us see. So first of all, I am saying about what is graph. So you have already learned in the previous class that what do you mean by graph, and you can draw various kind of graphs like histogram and line graph and so on. So what is graph? Graph means the pictorial representation between two quantities which are related in some way. Means if two quantities are related in some way, like 2 times of something, or half of something, or 2 times plus 2 of something, or more than 3 times of something, then these kind of relationship, if two quantities hold, then we can represent this relationship by some picture using lines. This kind of representation is known as graph. So let us say that we say that one quantity is x and another is y. So if we consider the relationship as y is 2 times of x, this means the relationship between y and x is 2 times. So these two quantities y and x are related in some way here by 2 times. So now my question is how we draw the graph. So how we draw the graph? It is very simple. You have already learnt about these things in your previous class, that the coordinate in coordinate geometry, that you have to take two axes, let's say x dash and y dash, and you have to take the intersection point of two axes, which is called origin, and represented by capital O, and its coordinate is 0, 0. And you have to consider the signs positive or negative. If you turn eastward from the origin, we take it as positive, and if we take in the westward direction from the origin, we take it as negative. And in the same way, in the vertical axis, which is called y dash, in the upward direction it is taken as positive, and in the downward direction it is taken as negative. So for the drawing of graph, you have to use a grid. Grid means the network of several perpendicular lines. Here you can see these are parallel lines, and these are parallel lines, but these are all perpendicular lines situated situated at a fixed distance to each other. Here you can say this is 1 unit and this is also 1 unit. You can take it. So we have discussed the relationship of y and x here is 2 times of x. This means here the relationship we got it as y is equal to 2x. So you have to make a table for x and y so that we can join the points on the coordinate axis. So we have to take you have to make a table for the values. At least 3 or 2 values you can take, or more than 2 if not sufficiently. You can draw the actual graph of the figure. So you can take 3 or 5 or 4 as which must be sufficient to represent the actual graph. So so now next point is draw coordinate points x comma y on the graph. That means if you take some values x and y, and that means you are taking coordinates. Coordinate means you have to take x and then y, and x is the distance along the x-axis and y is the distance along y-axis. So then the two lines, when they meet at a single point, which is denoted as x comma y, so we have to take all the values and we have to draw the point, join all them by freehand. So if we draw the points and by taking values or by taking coordinates, then you can join it by your free-hand, not by scale or measuring tools, but by freehand, and you can nearly got the actual graph of the figure of the relationship. So how can you draw if I take the relationship between y and so how can you draw the relationship between y and x if y is equal to 2x? That means y is 2 times than x. That means so here is the grid points I have drawn by my only my freehand, but in the graph it is plotted already, and in your notebook or copies also there are many parallel lines drawn already. So if they are not parallel lines, you can draw by scales or measuring tools. So I have drawn two axes, y dash and x dash. Here x dash, and the intersection point is here O, which coordinate point is 0, 0, because the x-axis and y-axis cut at 0 and 0 values. So this is 0, 0. Y-axis also known as score axis, ordinate axis or vertical axis, and x-axis also known as over axis, abscissa axis, and horizontal axis. So in this way, the every section of this line, parallel lines, have same unit as here and as here and here. So each segment have equal length. That means you can assign a scale or assign a value for that segment in the graph. So these are the thing that you see in the graph or graph paper. So one big box here, I am taking the square box here. So if you want to draw the graph, you have to take some scale, which can be written as one big box. Along x-axis you can take 1 unit, and along y-axis you can take 1 unit, this kind of thing. So now the next point you have to do is you have to make a table for the values. So you can take any values for x and y and make a table. And for remember that you have to take lesser values so that you can represent on the on your graph paper easily. And so I am taking here x is equal to y, and you got y is equal to 2 by putting the value of x, and I have taken x is equal to 1. Then you can take the value of x and got the value of y as 2. And similarly, if you take x is equal to -1, we can get the value of y is -2. So I am taking 3 values of x and 3 values of y. I am making a table. So here x0 for y0, x1 and y2, and x -1, y -2. So here I have got 3 points, 0, 0, 1, 2, and -1 comma -2. So you can take points as many as you can wish. That means your graph will be will be drawn by 3 points or 5 points or 10 points of lag points. It depends on you how you for what values you can take the you can make the table for. So you can choose the points, the number of points as per your convenience. Now remember one thing also, that don't take the values of x and y as fraction, because you have to deal with fraction, then you can have some mistake while drawing the graph or choosing the segments length, which represents the decimal number or fraction number. So always try to take those values which have integer value, and if sometimes you can have half of the multiple of half, for example 0.5, 1.5, minus 1.5, minus 2.5, this kind of value can be taken, because you know that if one segment measure one unit, it means the half of this segment is a measure 0.5 unit. In the same way, if this is 2 and this is 2, so this is 1.5 and this is 0.5. So in this way you can take the decimal value if there is the multiple of half. So now you have understood how can you draw the graph. So I am giving you some problems so that you can be familiar by yourself by drawing some graphs. Here I am giving you some TAH problems, so you have to draw all these cases between y and x. Here y is equal to x, you have to draw the relationship between y and x is they are equal, and here y is equal to minus x. That means y is the negative of x. This is also relationship. So there are many relationship. You have to draw all the graphs on your graph paper. If you face difficulty or have trouble in your mind or any doubt, you can comment on my YouTube channel. So here is a problem. Now I am turned to another problem so that you can be familiar with kinematics using graph. So I am here giving you some problem, TH problem, so that you will be familiar with graph as well as how to use graph in motion. I am here taking s is equal to 2t, b is equal to u plus at. Here you have to take u and a as constant like a number. Have you got my point? So take u and a as constant, but b and t as variable. You have to take it as y and x. So here b equal to 3t1 plus or b minus u equal to 10t. This kind of thing you have to draw b versus t and s versus t. So don't confuse with the symbol. Here I am taking s and t and b and t. So s is same as y and t is same as x. I have already told you in the in this lecture. In the same way, if I draw b versus t, that means b is same as y and t is same as x. So you have to take b along y-axis and x along the x-axis, and we have to draw make a table for the values 3 or 4 values, and then you have to draw the points, coordinate points, and then join all the points by your free hand. This is your graph. So so here you have to take u and a. You can take u and a anywhere. Don't bother about it. U and a is as same as number. So I am taking u may be 4, maybe 5, but it is fixed and it is a number. So I am giving you some problem. So you have to first of all you have to draw the graph for easier cases. I will deal more about it in the next lecture for the difficult cases, and so you will be surprised that it is easier way to handle a physical problem or problems in motion. So if you have graph, use graph paper And if you have not, use your scale to draw the axes and coordinate points. And next point is a scale is important in your graph paper or in your graph everywhere. So what is a scale? A scale is the length you choose a paper on paper, and you assign some value about that length. So for example, I give you for example for realistic situation that let's say expenditure of me in 1990 is about 1 lakh, and on 1995 after 5 years it becomes 2.5 lakh, and in 2000 it becomes 4 lakh. So how can you draw, how can you take a scale on your graph paper? So I'm here the measuring tool here. Your measuring tool is like this: 1 2 3 4 and 1 2 3 4. So this is 1 unit and this is 1 unit, this is 1 unit. So so I'm taking here for the scale 1 unit length. Here 1 unit length is 1 lakh, and on the scale if I'm taking rupees or expenditure, so rupees or forex rupees or expenditure, I'm taking 1 unit length is 1 lakh. So on and on the time scale or in the year, I am taking 5 years as 1 unit length. So how can I measure, how can I draw this kind of scale on the graph paper? And now see here along the y-axis I am taking my expenditure or rupees, or along the x-axis I am taking year. So I am taking 1990 here, and this in 1 unit length I am taking 5 years, so it becomes 1995, and it also becomes 5 years, that means it also becomes 2000. In the similar way, I have taken 1 unit along x-axis as 1 lakh, so it becomes 1 lakh, it becomes 2 lakh, it becomes 3 lakh, it becomes 4 lakh, and so on. That's why at 1990 it my coordinate point is here, because in 1990 my expenditure is 1 lakh, and in 1995 my expenditure is 2.5. That means here 2 lakh and here 2.5 lakh. So this is my expenditure, and in 2000 my expenditure is 4 lakh. That means the 4 unit length is equal to 4 lakh. Have you got my point? So scale is important in your graph. So now if I am taking 2 unit length as 1 lakh and 5 year as 1 unit length, then what will happen? So don't bother about it. Graph may be expanded, may be contracted, but the relationship is same, or the representation or of the by the graph is actually the same. You got the same value or same answer by all those graphs, but it may looks expanded some if your scale is bigger, and if it looks contracted if your scale is smaller. So don't bother it. Here I am taking bigger unit, bigger scale. Here 2 unit becomes 1 lakh, but in previous case I have taken 1 unit as 1 lakh, but I am not change this unit of length in this case also. So at 1990, and the 1 unit length along the axis is 5 years, so it becomes 1995, and again the same, it becomes 2000. But here at 99 it becomes 2 unit length, because 1 lakh is equal to 2 unit length becomes 2 lakh. Here this is 1 lakh, and now another 2.5 lakh means here 1 lakh and 1 lakh, 2 lakh and half, 3 lakh and half means 2.5 lakh. Here you can draw, and another to 2000 you can draw it. Here is 4 lakh, 4 means 8 section, 2 unit 1 lakh, so 8 section means 4 lakh. So in this way you can see that my expenditure, my graph is somewhat expanded, but in this case it contracted. So according to the scale, graph may be expanded or may be contracted, but the answer you got from the graph is same. You got same answer from any. If your scale is changed, answer never be changed. So there may be infinite number of scale you can choose as per your convenience. I am taking 10 years 1 unit length, 15 years 1 unit length, or I am taking 4 unit as 1 lakh. So there may be infinite number of scale you can be possible. So you can take whatever easy for you and whatever the scale which reduce your time on solving the problem. So in physics you will see that in motion, in kinematics, a scale is not somewhat important. You just draw the graph and find the relationship or observe the graph and solve the problems. You can get the conclusion. I will deal about it. How can you get the conclusion from the graph in the upcoming lectures? So stay tuned with me and learn mathematics.